Welcome to the Webinar Keys to Success lesson. In this lesson, we're going to go over how webinars fit into your three-prong approach plan, a brief overview of the 6 components of your webinar, and what you need to know to create a webinar that successfully sells your offer. First though, let's make sure that you know what a webinar is and why webinars are so powerful. A webinar is simply a seminar that's conducted over the internet where you provide a free training that leads into an offer. It includes both an audio and visual component, so your audience will be able to see and hear either you and/or your presentation. Webinars are one of the most powerful online marketing methods for selling practically any type of offer, and they work so well for a few reasons. First, attendees get to hear and possibly see you, which is infinitely more powerful for establishing trust and building a relationship than just a PDF or emails. Second, a webinar is a significant commitment as they usually last for at least half an hour or more. This pre-qualifies your leads so that you know your attendees are serious about solving their problem. For these reasons, webinars can be incredibly powerful for your business, which is why this course has an entire section dedicated to showing you how to create a successful webinar. In terms of where webinars fit into your three-prong approach plan, they fall squarely into the third phase, the long-term approach. After you get your first clients through the first 2 phases, you'll want to start automating your customer acquisition so that you don't have to rely on doing outreach, waiting for referrals, or being active on social media daily to continue getting clients. Webinars are one of the most effective ways to do so because of the reasons we just went over. And as you drive more traffic and potential customers to your site in the next module on scaling, your webinars are how you'll be able to leverage yourself to take advantage of that traffic and convert more customers. A successful webinar includes so much more than just the webinar itself. In addition to the webinar content, you also need to set up the technology to host it, which the webinar setup implementation guide for this section will walk you through. You'll also need to have a page for your webinar so that people can sign up for it, and of course you'll need to promote that landing page so that your audience knows to sign up for the webinar. We'll talk more about how to both set up a landing page and promote it in the next module on scaling. In addition, you'll need to integrate the landing page with your email marketing provider so that you can send emails to your webinar signups. Pre-webinar emails, which are the emails you send before the webinar to people who've signed up, have one purpose: to get as many people as possible to actually attend or watch the webinar. Post-webinar emails are the emails you send after the webinar, including an email linking to a replay of the webinar for people who signed up but weren't able to attend it at the designated time. Other than the replay email, these post-webinar emails will most likely be the same emails that you already wrote earlier in this course. There are 5 keys to success to make sure that your webinars sell. The first key is that your webinar needs to include all 3 of the following essential webinar elements. First, your webinar training needs to create belief that you can help your viewers solve their problem. You do that by sharing how your solution is better than anything else they've tried, so that even if they've tried other solutions before that haven't worked, they can believe that your solution will still work for them. In addition, your training should talk through a specific and tangible solution, not a general one. For example, a webinar on 3 steps to 3-week abs is going to be much more effective than, say, a webinar on how to live a healthy life. Second, when you're selling on your webinar, you need to give attendees a reason to take advantage of your offer while they're on the training, because that's when they're most likely to act. And it's one of the greatest advantages of running your webinar as well, because it has a set beginning and end time. There is an inbuilt sense of urgency. To leverage that, you can offer some sort of limited bonus or offer that only people who take action while they're on the webinar will get. Finally, make sure you use your testimonials. Nothing establishes trust like showing that you've helped others just like your viewers get the results that they want. Your second key to success is that your webinar needs to have a big idea that links the entire problem, training, offer path so that it makes sense to transition naturally from each phase to the next as you move through your webinar, and so that your viewer walks away remembering that big idea that differentiates your offer. Your big idea is most likely going to be some version of your hook that you created to differentiate your offer in the Clarity module. For example, a common big idea that I use for my employee to entrepreneur webinars is that the common advice for building your business is outdated because most of the people giving it never had to build a business while also working a 9-to-5. The pain is wanting to build your own business and leave your 9-to-5. The path in the free training is a strategic, step-by-step overview of the different elements of my unique side business building strategy. And the offer is, of course, this program, which gives you the details of that strategy. We'll go into more detail on what kind of training to offer on your webinar in the next lesson on your webinar outline. Preparing for your first webinar can be a bit nerve-wracking, so I'm going to share a few tips to make the experience go as smoothly as possible. First, the best thing that you can do to make sure that your webinar goes well is to practice beforehand. Just as you would practice for a presentation for work, running through the webinar on your own will help you get a feel for the flow of your presentation, the right pace to run your webinar through, and what to say. Next, you should repeatedly deliver the same webinar until you have a high converting training that you can deliver in your sleep and that you know works like clockwork to drive conversions. There are two ways to do this. You should deliver at least your first webinar live, where you're presenting the content in real time for your attendees. However, after that, if it's not feasible for you to run live webinars regularly, then you can record your webinar and automate it so that you don't have to actually deliver it all the time. And of course, we'll cover how to do that in this section's implementation guides. No matter which way you choose, though, the important thing is to take the feedback and questions that you get from attendees, whether they're watching the live version or the automated one, to improve your training until it's the best that it can be. Your fourth key to success is that it's important for you to know the kinds of numbers you can expect and that you should be aiming for. I do want to remind you that it's okay to not hit these numbers on your first few attempts. That's normal. This is a process. Here are the average webinar benchmarks so that you can measure how you're doing and know if you're doing well or if there's room for improvement. For your landing page conversion rate, you want to work towards 40% or higher, although anything above 25% is okay. For your webinar live attendance rate, you want to aim for 20% or higher. So for every 100 people who sign up for your webinar, you want to have at least 20 people attend live. If you're running an automated webinar where you've recorded yourself delivering the webinar so that people can watch it whenever it's convenient for them, then your attendance rate should be 40% or higher because of the increased convenience. And finally, the percentage of people who you can expect to take you up on your paid offer should be 1% or higher of your total webinar signups. This should increase as you get better with your webinar delivery and your sales conversation process, but these are benchmarks to help you get started. It might take a few tries for everything to click into place for you and to get close to these numbers, but keep at it and you will see phenomenal results. Last, but definitely not least, your final key to success is to remember what the point of your webinar is. The top mistake that I see with webinars is that they teach too much. This isn't about not giving value to your audience, but here's the thing. If you give too much information, it ends up with your audience feeling either too overwhelmed to take action or like they've gotten all the information they need so they don't need your offer. You and I both know that you can't simply show someone everything they need to know to solve their problem in an hour. But if it feels like that, or if the solution simply feels too overwhelming, then you've lost the sale. Again, we'll go into more detail on what kind of training to offer on your webinar in the next lesson on your webinar outline to achieve the perfect balance between teaching and selling. In this lesson, we covered the 6 different components of your webinar, as well as the 5 keys to success to make sure that your webinars sell. Your next steps are to move on to the Your Webinar Outline lesson, where we'll dive into planning your actual webinar training.